Okay, so think about this for a second. By next year, 2025, the projections are showing something like 7.2 million international students around the globe.
Yeah, 7.2 million. It's a huge number.
And that's not just, a statistic somewhere else. It means a massive movement of people coming to universities everywhere and, well, increasingly right here in our own towns and cities.
Exactly. And we're not talking about like a quick holiday trip. These are people deciding really deliberately to leave home for education for their careers.
Right.
Which brings us to this really interesting idea we want to dig into today, diaspora missions on campuses.
Okay, diaspora missions on campuses. Sounds pretty academic, maybe. Break that down for us.
Sure. Basically, it just means ministry efforts, Christian outreach, specifically aimed at these international students, the ones who've, chosen to come here to study and grow professionally.
Okay. So it's different from the, let's say, traditional picture, sending people way off somewhere else.
Yeah, not quite like that. The fascinating thing, I think, is realizing that, in a way, the world has kind of shown up right here. These students, they represent a global mission field, but they're present locally on our campuses.
So glocal is the word I've heard for that. Global and local mashed together.
That's the one. Local missions. It's a perfect description, really.
So delving into this isn't just like looking at history. It's about understanding a really big global trend that's actually happening all around us right now. You think this gives us a kind of aha moment?
I really think so, because we're not just talking abstract numbers. We're looking at what's often an overlooked but really strategic opportunity.
Okay.
And to really get a handle on it, its significance and where it came from, we've been looking over this summary of the International Student Ministry Movement, ISM, mainly in North America.
Right, so that gives us the history and the current picture.
Exactly, both sides.
So our mission for this deep dive, then, is to pull out the key stuff from that overview. You want to get, how this focus on ministry to international students got started, why it's seen as so important, and what impact it's had and still has.
That's it. And the first thing that really jumps out is just how, strategic this whole area is considered.
Strategic? How so?
Well, think about it. These students, they are very, very likely to be the future leaders back in their home countries, influencing everything, government, business, education, all of it. The U.S. State Department even noted that hundreds of current world leaders actually studied in the USA.
Wow. Okay, that definitely changes how you might think about just, welcoming someone to campus. It's potentially engaging with a future prime minister or CEO or something.
Potentially, yes. And it goes further. If you look at the stories of many prominent church leaders or mission leaders around the world, you often find their journey into faith, into Christianity, started when they were an international student somewhere else.
Well.
Yeah. They connect with Christians, maybe get discipled, then they go back home and become, key people in the growth of the church there.
That's a powerful thought. So these aren't just temporary visitors. They could become real agents of change back home.
Absolutely. And there's another piece to this, too. Think about students coming from places where maybe Christianity isn't welcomed or where it's hard to even learn about it.
Right. Restricted contexts.
Exactly. Coming here to a new environment, maybe a less restrictive one, they might just be more open to, picking up a Bible, exploring Jesus's teachings, asking questions they couldn't ask before.
That makes a lot of sense. A change of place can open up the mind, can't it?
It really can.
But it sounds like this isn't just a one-way street, is it? What about the benefits for, us, for people here engaging with them?
Oh, it's definitely reciprocal. Hugely so. We're talking about chances for, real cross-cultural friendships.
Yeah.
Genuine hospitality, both giving and receiving it. And just learning so much from each other, intercultural understanding. Plus, international students bring their own perspectives, maybe unique ways of understanding faith or community from their home cultures. It broadens our view of Christianity globally.
So not just reaching out, but more like mutual learning and growing. That adds a lot more depth, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
And practically speaking, you mentioned strategic. Does that include maybe the cost side of things?
Yes, definitely. You often hear pastors or ministry leaders involved in ISM talk about it being really good value for missions.
Good value.
Yeah, in terms of resources. Think about it. The cost of connecting with and supporting students who are already here in your town, it's usually way less than sending and supporting traditional missionaries overseas, often in many different places.
Right, that makes sense. instead of funding, say, multiple overseas setups.
Exactly. You can invest right here, building relationships with this incredibly diverse group of potential future leaders all in one place.
Okay, that is interesting.
And it also opens things up for people personally, direct involvement.
How so?
Well, maybe someone feels called to missions, but going overseas long-term just isn't feasible for whatever reason.
Right. Life circumstances, family, health.
All sorts of things. ISM gives them a way to be actively involved, hands-on, to be, you could say, a missionary without leaving home. It goes beyond just praying or giving money.
That must be really meaningful for people who have that desire to connect directly.
I think it is, yeah.
And the long-term picture. What's the ripple effect?
Potentially huge. International students who embrace faith here and then go back home. They can become these amazing sort of ready-made kingdom ambassadors.
Getting in ambassadors?
Yeah, right within their professional fields, their workplaces, their communities. They understand the culture implicitly. They can be powerful witnesses and also really valuable connections for future partnerships back in their countries.
So it's like planting seeds that can bear fruit globally for years, even decades.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's zoom out again then. The numbers. You said it's a growing trend. Give us a feel for just how big this increase has been globally and maybe here in North America.
Yeah, the growth is pretty striking. Globally, if you go back to, say, 2013, it was about 4.3 million students studying abroad.
Okay.
But since the year 2000, the average growth rate each year has been almost 7%.
Consistently growing.
Yeah, which leads to that projection we started with, 7.2 million globally expected by 2025.
That's a massive curve upwards. What about North America specifically? Any figures there?
Well, Canada, for example, saw its international student numbers jump by 67% just between 2002 and 2009.
67%.
Yeah, and looking at North America overall, back around 2014, if you included undergrads, grads, people in language programs, postdocs, the estimate was maybe over 1 million international students and scholars here.
Over 1 million.
Oh.
Okay, that really lands the scale of this potential opportunity.
It really does.
It makes you wonder then, how did this whole focus begin? Who are the pioneers, the early figures?
Well, the name that really stands out, the person who kind of founded the organized ISM movement in North America is John R. Mott.
John R. Mott. Now, he's famous for the 1910 Edinburgh World Missionary Conference, right?
Yeah.
That huge pivotal event.
Absolutely. He chaired that conference, a massive landmark in mission history. But yes, there's this other really significant part of his work that maybe isn't as widely known.
Okay, tell us more.
Well, besides Edinburgh, Mott wore a lot of hats. He was chair of the Student Volunteer Movement for Foreign Missions, the SVMFM, which was all about sending students overseas.
Right.
He also chaired the International Missionary Council, was the first general secretary for the World Student Christian Federation, the WSCF, aiming to link Christian students globally. And he was national secretary for the Intercollegiate YMCA. A very busy guy.
Sounds like it.
But then, in April 1911, literally just a month after getting back from big trips in Europe and Egypt and juggling all that other stuff, he launches the first national Christian ministry specifically for international students. It was called the Committee on Friendly Relations Among Foreign Students, the CFR.
April 1911. That's fascinating. So with his big focus on sending people out with the SVMFM, what made him start something for students coming in?
It seems like it kind of grew out of things he was seeing and thinking about. Back in 1907, he had thought about raising money for Christian student hostels in Japan, not just for Japanese students, but also for the many Chinese, Korean, and other Asian students studying in Tokyo then.
So the seed of the idea was there supporting international students.
Exactly. And then in 1909, he helped organize something specific for Chinese students in the U.S. using YMCA funds. That experience probably helped shape his thinking. He started pushing more for the need to serve all the international students arriving here.
And the CFR itself, the Committee on Friendly Relations. It came together fast, didn't it?
Yeah.
The funding story is quite something.
It really is. April 1911, he's meeting in New York with Cleveland Dodge, who chaired the YMCA's International Committee. Mott shares this idea, this vision for supporting foreign students.
Okay.
Dodge says, let's go see Andrew Carnegie right now.
Wow, just like that.
Just like that. They go see Carnegie that same afternoon. Carnegie pledges $10,000, a huge sum then, and challenges Dodge to match it.
And did he?
Instantly. Matched it right there. Then, walking back, they bump into another friend who pledges another $10,000.
No way.
Yeah. And then the very next evening, At a committee meeting, someone else adds $8,000. So basically, in 2 days, they'd raised almost all the money they needed to launch the CFR.
That's incredible. It really shows there must have been a sense of urgency or opportunity there.
Absolutely, a perceived need.
So what did the CFR actually do in those early days?
Well, pretty quickly, within a few years, they put together this really useful handbook for foreign students.
A handbook?
Yeah, listing services, resources, things that honestly are still relevant for ISM workers today, practical stuff. And besides these direct services, often done by volunteers from churches, recruited through the local YMCAs, the CFR also played a big role in encouraging other groups to care for foreign students, helping them get started.
So kind of a catalyst.
Very much so. And that groundwork actually helped lead to the creation of some major organizations we know today in international education, like NAFSA, the Association of International Educators, and the Institute of International Education. They kind of owe a debt to the CFR's early work.
Interesting connection.
Yeah. And the CFR itself kept going for decades, eventually changing its name in 1965 to International Student Service, or ISS.
Okay, so it laid crucial groundwork. And you mentioned Mott himself was kind of building towards this. His awareness was growing even before 1911. Can you give some examples?
Definitely. Even way back at a conference in 1886, the initial thought of a student volunteer group that would also help foreign students was starting to form in his mind. It took 25 years to fully launch, but the idea was there.
Wow, 1886.
Yeah. Then, soon after, the World Student Christian Federation, the WSCF, was formed in 1895 with Mott as its first leader. One of its specific goals was looking after the spiritual well-being of foreign students worldwide.
So it was on the agenda early.
It was. Then in 1906, he's traveling, he's in Hong Kong, and he notes, kind of surprised, how many students he met had studied abroad, in Japan or the U.S. Same trip, in Japan, he observes that almost all the professors at the top university in Tokyo had degrees from Europe or America.
So he's seeing this student mobility happening and realizing these people are going to be influential.
Exactly. In 1907, he flat out says that the first wave of modern Chinese students coming to America was the greatest opportunity he'd ever seen. He stressed how important it was to Christianize these men who would lead the new China.
Strong words.
Yeah. Then 1908, he's talking about the large numbers of Indian, Korean, Filipino, Chinese students studying in Tokyo, highlighting Japan as this educational hub for Asia.
He's really connecting the dots, isn't he? Seeing the global flows.
He absolutely is. In a 1910 report for the SVM-FM, the group sending missionaries out, he makes the point that foreign students, if they became Christians, could often be more effective reaching their own people than Western missionaries.
That's a significant claim.
It is. And in his report for the big Edinburgh Conference that same year, 1910, he actually voices concern. He worries that negative experiences students have while studying abroad could hinder the gospel when they go home. He specifically mentioned Chinese and Korean students returning from Japan with bad impressions.
So the student experience mattered for global mission outcomes.
That's what he was seeing. In 1911, the year the CFR starts, he makes a point of meeting university students in Switzerland, noting how many were from Eastern Europe and had, major misconceptions about Christianity. By 1914, he's telling people that international students in North America who find faith could have a greater impact back home than foreign missionaries sent from North America. And that same year, he lays out this whole rationale for ISM, calling the Christian student movements the best agency for it, and saying influencing these students for Christ was just paramount. And he kept championing ISM at those big SVM-FM student conventions through the 20s and 30s.
It's really quite a journey, tracing his growing conviction about this. Amazing.
It really is.
Okay, so Mott gets the CFR going in 1911. But then, the overview you looked at mentions a bit of a gap before lots of other national ISMs started.
Yeah, the source called it roughly a 40-year hiatus in terms of new nationwide ISMs popping up after the CFR.
40 years is quite a while.
It is. The main thing happening in that time was around 1944, InterVarsity USA started encouraging its campus staff to make sure they were including international students in their regular outreach.
Okay, so integrating them in.
Yeah, and key people there like Stacy Woods, who'd been a national student himself, and Christy Wilson, David Adeni, they really pushed the importance of ISM within InterVarsity.
Right.
Adeni actually became IVUSA's first dedicated director for ISM in 1952. And by the next year, they were officially working alongside the CFR. InterVarsity Canada started its ISM work in 52 as well. So Ivy was really important in sort of reigniting that national focus.
Okay, so InterVarsity plays this key role in the 40s and early 50s. What came next? Any other big organizations starting up then?
The next really significant national ISM was International Students, Inc., ISI. That was founded in 1953.
ISI, okay. What was the story there?
It was started by a guy named Bob Finley. He'd been a missionary in China but had to leave after the Communist Revolution in 1949.
Ah, okay.
And Finley had noticed something striking. Many of the key leaders in the Chinese Revolution had actually become communists while they were studying abroad.
Wow, that's quite an observation.
Yeah, and that became a huge motivation for him, the need to reach international students with a Christian perspective while they were studying in places like the U.S.
So a direct response to what he'd witnessed.
Very much so. And after ISI started in 53, you begin to see a more steady stream of other national ISMs forming over the next few decades. Different groups, different denominations getting involved.
Right, the momentum picks up again. Can you give us a sense of that timeline? Which other groups emerged and when?
Sure. Let's see. In the 1950s, you had the Southern Baptists starting their ISM work in 1955.
Okay.
Then the 60s, Ambassadors for Christ began focusing specifically on Chinese students around 1963. Campus Crusade for Christ, which later became Bridges International for its ISM arm, had some early outreach around 68, but then a big restart and focus from about 1983.
Right. So CRU Bridges. What about the 70s?
In the 70s, the Navigators started their international student work in 77, and International Friendship Ministries was founded in 79.
Okay, keeping track here. What about the 80s? Sounds like that was a busy time.
The 80s were very active, yeah. You got the Association of Christians Ministering Among Internationals, ACMI, started in 81. That's more of a professional network organization. Right. Then Reformed University Fellowship International, that's PCA denomination, in 83. International Student Ministries Canada in 84. China Outreach Ministries in 88. And Shi Alpha, the Assemblies of God Campus Ministry, started its ISM focus in 89.
Wow, quite a few in the 80s. Any key ones from the 90s?
Yep. The 90s saw Horizons International starting in 1990. Also, the Japanese Christian Fellowship Network, which focuses a lot on helping students returning to Japan. That was 92. Interface Ministries in 91. And ISM Inc., which is linked to the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, began in 96.
It's quite a list. It really shows this growing wave of recognition across different Christian traditions, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. A broadening commitment to this specific area of ministry.
And all this growth happened alongside that massive increase in the actual number of students. Can you just remind us of that contrast? Mott's time versus, say, a century later.
Yeah, it's stark. When Mott started the CFR in 1911, there were, 4,856 foreign students in the entire United States?
Under 5,000.
Right. Fast forward exactly 100 years to 2011. That number in the U.S. alone was 723,277.
Whoa. From under 5,000 to over 720,000.
Exactly. And significantly, the two biggest groups in that 2011 number were from China, about 160,000, and India, around 104,000.
That 100-fold plus increase.
Yeah.
It just dramatically highlights the scale of the opportunity today compared to when Mott started.
Immense. Just immense.
So as we kind of pull these threads together from our deep dive, what's the main thing, the core takeaway you think we should hold on to from all this?
I think the central point is really this. Having so many international students here on our campuses and our communities, it's a genuinely significant and still growing opportunity, an opportunity for meaningful local connection with the whole world. And importantly, this isn't some totally new idea we just discovered. It's a vision that someone like John R. Mott saw and started acting on more than 100 years ago.
Right. And this relevance, it isn't just for people involved in church or ministry work, is it? How does this connect to, everyone listening, whatever their background?
Oh, no, definitely not just for church folks. I mean, whether you're a student yourself or you work at a university or you live in the community, run a business, or you're just someone interested in the world.
Yeah.
The presence of these students offers so much. Real potential for cross-cultural learning, for just understanding global dynamics better, and even maybe contributing in some small way to a positive global impact starting right where you are.
Because these are, as you said, potential future leaders and influencers spending really important years right here.
Exactly. Right here among us.
Okay. So to wrap up this deep dive, what's a final thought, maybe a question you'd like to leave with everyone listening?
Well, just thinking about how connected our world is now and the fact that, these future global leaders are literally studying down the street or across campus. maybe just ask yourself, what's one small practical step you could take?
A step towards what?
Towards just better understanding or maybe engaging a little bit more with the international student community right in your own area. It could be super simple.
Like what?
Oh, I don't know. Striking up a conversation if you get the chance. Offering a simple welcome. Taking 5 minutes to learn something about where someone comes from. It doesn't have to be a big program.
Right. Small steps.
Yeah. Because the potential for, mutual enrichment, learning from each other, and maybe even having some small part in a bigger global story, it's really quite immense right here on our doorstep.